18 to 21 further north. Then the showers ease away across central and southern parts of the UK overnight, but they'll keep going across northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. Thicker cloud towards the northwest and clear spells towards the southeast. But wherever you are, it's a slightly milder night, with most places seeing temperatures stay at 11 to 14 Celsius. Then good prospects for sunshine across the Midlands, eastern and southern England, eastern Scotland first thing Thursday. Elsewhere, the cloud builds, and certainly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of England and Wales will see some showers developing before some wetter weather arrives into Northern Ireland, along with a strengthening breeze later Thursday. That continues to affect much of Scotland and Northern Ireland on Friday, whilst the heat builds further south.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, woke banks wage war on small C conservatives as Coutts uses the British bashing corporation to lead the establishment fight back against Nigel Farage. I'll reveal my personal experience of being debanked and my chilling ordeal's possible links to Stonewall. That's in my digest next. Then my superstar panel weigh-in, and tonight I'm joined by Amanda Platel, Ranil Jayawardeneh and Rebecca Reid. Elsewhere tonight, today marks 6 long months since Rishi Sunak made 5 bold pledges to the public. But as the NHS crumbles, inflation remains sky high and record-breaking numbers of small boat migrants continue pouring over the channel, did the PM merely pen his own epitaph?
So do you have a plan for what you'll do if the appeal fails? As I said, our belief remains that the plan that we have is legal.
So after today's typically uninspiring display, my panellists will mark Rishi's half-term report card. Will he pass or fail? Find out in the Media Buzz. Also coming up tonight, Tory MP Dame Andrea Jenkins hits back after she was part of the group of MPs named and shamed in the Privileges Committee report. A brave bunch, sources close to Boris have dubbed the Magnificent Seven. The former Education Minister is refusing to be silenced by Westminster's Kangaroo Court, and she speaks out exclusively later this hour. I'll be joined by Angela Levin in the studio too, as she reacts to reports the increasingly reclusive Prince Harry was AWOL from his best man's wedding, before Tom Bower reveals all about the confusion that's reigning in Montecito as the wounded brand Sussex faces a serious commercial crisis. Their unmissable analysis coming up live in the studio. And in another TV exclusive, the American author and YouTube star Shallon Lester explains why she's threatening to sue Harry and Meghan for defamation after the couple's Netflix hit job unfairly branded her an online troll.
They were coordinating and talking about what they would discuss for that particular day or week, what pictures they should disseminate. They were actively recruiting people.
She reveals all from stateside shortly. Plus, the Nats are fleeing the sinking ship as the SNP's biggest star, Mari Black, becomes the 6th MP to quit the fading party.
You're not going to stand for the SNP?
No, I'm stepping down at the next election.
Why?
I'll bring you scheming Sturgeon's infuriating reaction to that cringeworthy resignation in the Media Buzz. We'll have tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you too, hot off the press. Brand new Greatest Britain Union jackass will be crowned as well before the night is out. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. You're watching GB News, Britain's news channel. Little programming note, it's my last show, only for a week and a half. But you'll remember earlier this year, hopefully you'll remember, I had my wonderful family in the studio, including my little niece. There she is, Ivy Dan, who is just, honestly, the most beautiful, precious thing in the world. And I'll show you her now. This is what she's looking like now. And she's obviously in New Zealand. And so I've got to go and visit Ivy Dan. I know you give me permission to do that. I will share lots of photos. The great news is the brilliant Mark Dolan is going to be doing something like 12 nights in a row. So I owe him a very big bottle of vodka for doing that. But you'll have all of the regulars here, the superstar panel. So please don't go anywhere at 9 o'clock, and I will see you the week after next. We've got a great show, so don't go anywhere tonight, though, either. My digest on this disgusting freedom of speech issue with the woke banks in just a moment. First, though, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. Well, the top story tonight on GB News is that the chair of the Privileges Committee, Tory MP, Sir Bernard Jenkin, could be facing a police investigation into a lockdown party at Conservative Party HQ. Sir Bernard responded this evening in a statement saying it's not appropriate to comment for the moment on a continuing investigation. Well, the Metropolitan Police are reopening their investigation into the so-called Jingle and Mingle lockdown party at Conservative Party HQ on the 8th of December 2020, which Sir Bernard is said to have attended. 2 COVID regulation breaches allegedly took place during the party. And the Prime Minister, as you've been hearing, has refused to say when he'll fulfil his promise to stop small boat crossings over the English Channel today. And he denied the plan is on hold amid legal obstacles stopping the government's plan to process migrants in Rwanda. Being questioned by senior MPs today, Rishi Sunak denied there was no plan B if the Supreme Court didn't overturn the ruling blocking the removal of migrants to Rwanda. He says ministers will challenge the appeal court judgment confidently and vigorously. Now, Strike News and junior doctors have voted to extend their strike action until at least January 2024. Members of the Hospital Consultants and Specialists Association in England decided to extend their strike action by another 6 months, with 96.5% voting in favour of the action. The decision comes as junior doctors prepare to walk out for 5 days this month, from the 13th to the 18th. The Prime Minister, though, said strikes are making NHS waiting lists longer.
Already had 500,000 people's care be impacted by industrial action, and I don't think that's right. I think everyone can see the economic context that we're in and the necessity for the government to make responsible decisions.
And teachers' unions are calling on the government to release recommendations on pay made by an independent body. NEU members in England are staging fresh strikes tomorrow and on Friday as well over their ongoing pay dispute with the government. All 4 education unions rejected the government's earlier offer of a £1,000 lump sum and a 4.5% pay rise. Finally, Their Majesties the King and Queen wish the NHS a happy 75th birthday today. Charles and Camilla visited the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh whilst on their visit to Scotland. To celebrate the special occasion, they met patients and staff and they unveiled a specially commissioned plaque. The Queen joked that the NHS shares a similar celebration as herself, as she also celebrates her birthday in July. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News.
So I'm starting to join the dots. A couple of years ago, HSBC, without any notice or reasoning, shut my business bank account. I'd been a customer there for over 15 years and was shocked by the corporate brutality of the decision, which came with absolutely no opportunity for any pushback or discussion. By that point, I was disgusted by the appalling customer service at that bank, which treats its customers like dirt, in my opinion, and was actually delighted to be able to close my personal accounts as well, knowing another bank had already agreed to take my business. After my colleague, Nigel Farage, bravely revealed his own travails after being debanked by Coutts over the past week, which has now seen him rejected by 9 other financial institutions, we know many folk do not have alternative options. Next time, I'm almost certain that I won't. So why would HSBC not want a loyal customer like me who had never caused them even a spot of bother? Today's Daily Telegraph probably provides the answer. HSBC is the top-ranking bank in Stonewall's annual Equality Index. Stonewall being that pernicious organisation that looks to destroy so-called heteronormativity, including, by the way, gay or lesbian folk like me, who believe in the importance of recognising biological sex and protecting the rights of women. There's a reason why small c Conservatives, from Brexit Party MEPs to religious leaders to free speech champions like Toby Young, are finding themselves cancelled by their banks. It's part of a bid to shut down this debate altogether. Now, not surprisingly, Coutts went to the British-bashing corporation to start the establishment fight back versus Nigel today, clearly terrified that parts of the media are picking up on just how chilling and dystopian debanking people you don't agree with really is. So the Beeb's business editor, Simon Jack, reported that Nigel, quote, fell below the financial threshold required to hold an account at Coutts, claiming the bank said the cancellation was down to commercial reasons and not politics, and that he had been offered an account with NatWest instead. Now, not only is that a massive breach of privacy by Coutts, but Nigel insisted it's intellectually dishonest, given that NatWest and that offer from NatWest only came after he went public.
Now they say they've offered me a NatWest account. That wasn't until late on Thursday night, after I'd blown the story out there, which said that then 7 other banks had refused me. That is now 9 other banks that have refused me. They're telling the press I don't meet their wealth threshold. Well, they've never mentioned that before in the previous 10 years. The worst of the story is they denied to me on the phone on Friday that I was a PEP, a politically exposed person. That's the reason nobody else will have me, and Coutts are, frankly, being very, very dishonest indeed.
Coutts today has its entire branch front covered with Pride paraphernalia. There it is. So it's clear where it stands, and as a result, its briefing to the Beeb is highly suspect. But regardless of the ins and outs of Nigel's case, there is a disturbing trend here. The Yorkshire Building Society has even admitted it will close the accounts of customers who question its obsession with the highly divisive Progress Pride flag. Banks have no business commenting on the politics of their customers. But to respond now, my superstar panel, top Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel, the former Conservative Cabinet Minister Ranil Jayawardena, and the best-selling author Rebecca Reed. Amanda Platel, the thing is, no matter what the BBC tries to suggest about Nigel's specific circumstances with Coots, there's a trend. This is not something that we're making up. My account was cancelled by HSBC. And this is not happening, Amanda, to folk on the left. It's not happening to Corbynistas or Labour Party members. It's happening to small C Conservatives.
The whole thing is rather sinister, I have to say. If I turned up at my bank and they had LGBTQ flags in the window, I'd go in and close my account. What banks are doing at the moment, there's something even more sinister going on here, I believe, in that the banks have lost sight of their customers and that they have a duty to care. I went into my high street bank and said, I want to see someone to help me set up online banking. And they said, fantastic, we'll do that. We can give you an appointment in 3 months. 3 months. And I've been banking with them for like 25 years. And what they've just fallen into this whole Stonewall thing has been a con, because they set up very cleverly this idea of the 100 most what are they called?
On the index.
The index, the 100 most LGBT-friendly, inclusive...
And this is why the Bank of England are now saying that men can give birth to babies.
What the hell is the Bank of England doing, saying that any person can give birth? No, I'm sorry, but only a woman can actually give birth. Whether she's trans to a man, only someone born a woman can give birth. But what the hell are they doing? They're completely screwed up our whole interest rate, completely screwed up this country economically, and yet they think it's a good thing to be sitting around talking about, the birth rights of trans people. They've completely lost the plot, but Stonewall were really clever because they got in very early. They have been employed by many government departments for years to do this index.
And they've got a lot of money. They've got hundreds of thousands of pounds from the government.
And everyone is desperate to be in that top 100. And yet, I'm one of their bog-standard core customers. I don't give a damn about all that stuff. But I just have one thing to say about Coots. I don't really think they're that selective because they offered an account to me and I didn't have £1 million in the bank.
But broadly speaking,
but they said it was because I would be good for their brand.
Interesting. Well, clearly
they won't think that tonight,
is good for their brand. Ranil, the issue with this is that, of course, we on the right believe in capitalism and we don't usually like to look to the state to implement further regulation. I understand that. But if you're debanked, like Nigel now is, he's been to 9 other banks, they've all said, no, how can he live in modern cash-free society?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Banking's now a utility. It's not a luxury anymore. And so everyone needs to be able to access an account. It's really good that the Treasury's now launched this probe into the banking sector because there are clearly questions to answer. As you've said, it's not just Nigel Farage, it's not just politicians, it's a vicar. This is just extraordinary. So it's got to be challenged. But I do just caution one thing. I mean, there have been people saying, oh, we need new legislation and so on. Legislation's got us into this mess. We need less law and more common sense in this country. The Human Rights Act, the Equality Act, these are the things that created the problem. And I don't think more politicians debating what the solution is going to actually fix that.
I disagree with that.
Because do you say it's a human right to have a bank?
I do think it's a human right, and it should be an inalienable right. And it's one I think that Rishi doesn't kind of get the point of, because let's be honest, if everyone closed his banks in Britain, he could just use his wife's offshore accounts.
But human rights weren't invented in 1998 when Tony Blair created this law. The point is, everyone had rights before that. It's these selective rights that have been crafted by New Labour. This is what's enabled organisations like Stonewall to champion certain causes.
Rebecca, where do you stand on this? Because I have to say I've been so disappointed by the left and their reaction to Nigel's story. Because do you remember when Novara Media was deplatformed by YouTube? It was actually all of the free speech champions on the right who rallied around.
That's not true.
No, it is absolutely true.
Andrew Doyle, who is a very good, nice man, was absolutely...
Julia Hartley-Brooke, I can find you a whole list of people.
There were also plenty who said nothing, because we're all guilty of the same thing. When it's our side who's being the victim, we all feel very bad for ourselves. And when it's the other side, we all go, ha, that's really funny. And yeah...
So you think it's funny that Nigel's being debanked?
I mean, I quite enjoy anything that inconveniences Nigel. And also,
that's a terrible thing to say, Rebecca.
Inconvenience is not hurt, it's not breaks, just a little bit irritates. I'm amused by it. I'm sure he feels the same way about lots of my people. But my point is, Coutts is not a woke institution. Coutts is a big, sexy, loaded, rich person bank. This is not an organisation that's all about the people. All that's happened here is that every Pride Month, loads of places try and rainbow wash themselves and seem like they care about certain rights, which they don't at all.
Correct.
And it's a PR drive, and the left is as much obsessed with the fact that it means nothing as the right is. Nobody really it's like Black History Month. It's all lip service, and people on the left say that just as much people on the right. Ultimately, they've made a misjudgment in terms of what they've tried to do for a good PR drive, because people feel like it's gone a bit far and it's a bit OTT.
But why is the left not standing up for people using their bank accounts?
Oh, well, in terms of using your bank accounts, I think banks are businesses and they have a right to decide who their customers are, like anybody does.
No, only legally
and
they
believing,
do.
But I think they do. But
if you're a money launderer, if you're getting money from Russian oligarchs, then you are entitled to be booted out of the bank. You're not entitled to be booted out of the bank for your views that...
But I think they are allowed to. They are allowed to get rid of you for that reason, because their business is their choice.
Well, they are allowed, yeah.
And I would say... But I do actually agree with you that having a bank account probably is a human right, because you basically can't spend money now without it.
What would you do if tomorrow all your bank accounts were closed?
Well, they tried to get rid of mine, but that was my fault, because I stopped answering any of their emails. This was quite a long time ago. I had to go to the bank and say, I'm so sorry, I will open the emails. Please may I have my account back? And they gave it to me. Thanks so much, guys. But I would say that I think there's probably a place for a sort of politically neutral state bank that anybody can have an account at. And I know it's scary and you wouldn't have an overdraft facility, it's just someone put the money.
The point is not
no overdraft facility.
All we need as consumers now, I think, to be clear that, you know, if you go woke, you go broke.
Absolutely.
People can now vote with their feet.
I couldn't agree more, because look at what happened in America with Bud Light.
Exactly.
That business is on life support now. And actually, if as consumers in the UK we start saying that we are going to vote with our feet and we are not going to support companies that
and you get people like me writing about it in the Daily Mail saying why I've left because I can't say who I bank with.
Well, look, no one is leaving Coutts because they're a little bit cross about Nigel Farage. It's not going to happen. Okay, well, the Bud Light core demographic are people who are cross about that kind of thing.
If my bank puts all that rubbish in their window, I am leaving.
And Rebecca, you're underestimating how angry people are about
I'm really
this
not.
You are.
It's a very small number of very loud people. Most people don't care.
Excuse me, that's me.
In order to close your account, you have to go there on a Saturday.
That was really mean. Start of the show, take that back. Very small number of very mean people. She didn't mean that, Dan.
No, I'm sure she didn't. Rebecca Reid, Ranil Jayawardena, a very angry Amanda Patel. So nice, my superstar panel with me all night. But coming up, member of the Johnson Seven, or Magnificent Seven, as Boris allies are now dubbing them, Dame Andrea Jenkins gives her first exclusive reaction to being censured by the Privileges Committee Kangaroo Court for speaking out against the Bojo witch hunt. The next in the clash after the Duke of Sussex is snubbed by his brother in a statement about their involvement in the Diana Awards charity. Can this guy stoop any lower? Is the breakdown in Harry and William's relationship now likely to be permanent? Richard Fitzwilliams head-to-head with Rebecca Toomey on that. But what do you think? Dan at gbnews.com. Vote in our poll at GBNews on Twitter. We're back after this.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel. Former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkyns speaks out exclusively against the Privileges Committee kangaroo court shortly, but time now for the clash. And Prince Harry's bitter feud with William has taken a petty new turn after the Duke left his own brother out of a statement on the Archewell website about the pair's involvement in the Diana Award. The charity, set up in memory of their mother, the Princess of Wales, recognises young people's humanitarian work. And despite both Windsor brothers recording videos for a virtual awards ceremony, Harry airbrushed the future King's contribution from his foundation's website. Jenny Bond, a former royal correspondent who met Princess Diana many times before her death, has now weighed in on the sibling rivalry by insisting Diana would be the only person who could fix the rift between the warring princes because they both meant the world to her. So what do you think? Is the breakdown in Harry and William's relationship likely to be permanent? Dan at gbnews.com. Vote in our poll at GB News on Twitter. But to debate this now, I'm joined by royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams and the broadcaster, journalist and supporter of the Sussexes, Rebecca Toomey. So, Richard Fitzwilliams, do you agree with Jenny Bond that there's not really any hope left because there's no one who can actually bring Harry and William together again?
Oh, I think it seems a perfectly reasonable statement because there is a reason for the deep rift that, alas, has broken up a relationship that we thought, and Spare, of course, had a very different dimension and showed that there was a lot of bitter rivalry in the past. We always thought was so tremendously close. I mean, there is no doubt that there's a fundamental problem here. You can't trust Harry. You can't trust Harry and Meghan, and I say this remembering following what happened on Oprah, and most recently with Spur and all the interviews he gave. I mean, Meghan, for example, saying I can say anything. I mean, she can't. At least you can't say anything and have people trust what you say. You can't confide in them because it will turn out either on television or indeed in a book. The problem is we don't know the Sussexes' plans, but they are completely unreasonable in my opinion, because simply time after time they've been attacking the royal family, knowing perfectly well that it's almost impossible, point by point, for the royals to hit back. And they've done a lot of damage, especially in the 18 to 24-year-old group, where the royals' popularity has plummeted. So, no, I don't see an end to the rift, I'm afraid.
So, Rebecca Toomey, Richard Fitzwilliam says there's no hope. He agrees with Jenny Bond. Why is he wrong?
I mean, with the utmost respect, I think in any scenario it would take a mother to reunite siblings together. I think we very much want to point aim at Meghan and say Meghan is to blame and Harry changed when he met her. But if you look at the trajectory of Harry's almost career as such, he was always very much in William's shadow. And I think for a long time he was happy with that. And then one day he'd had enough and wanted to carve out his own career and his own path. And he did step away from the royals and he did say, I want to do this myself. So I think with that statement that's come out, I think he was basically trying to honour the fact that he decided to leave the royal family, so he shouldn't really reference anything. I think really there needs to be a lot more time between these two brothers. I mean, it's just so sad that these two siblings who are so close have really had this massive falling out. And as we know in Spare, that horrible physical fallout William and Harry had together. But really, what I think will actually might reunite them is a lot of space and time. And when William is crowned king, which, you know, eventually he will be, I very much think he'll want his brother there. And I don't think Harry would ever let him down for that. I know we want to blame Meghan for a lot of this, but really I think there's a lot more going on than just Meghan and the argument between her and the royals and what's happened. I'm not justifying some of the things that happened, but I do think really when, you know, God forbid, King Charles, it's his time to go, I think that's when the brothers will really need to rely on each other because they would have lost another parent. And I very much hope that is the scenario that will happen.
But Rebecca, by that point, hasn't he left it too late? I mean, come on. He's doing this statement for the Diana Awards on his website. How dare he not mention his brother William? That's so petty. It's so nasty.
Is it though, or is it just him trying not to constantly cash in on the royals? Because I really think, and I've said this a few times to you now, Dan, I think Meghan and Harry are learning and they're realising how much damage they've done and they're stepping back and they're trying to assess and trying to basically not repeat history and not keep doing the same thing. So I think what Harry is trying to do is not keep bringing in the royals to everything he does. He's trying to, you know, celebrate his mother and his charities and what he's passionate about in his own way without constantly bringing up the royals. And I think in recent times, him and Meghan have not been doing that. And I really think they're learning. And that's what I think might heal the rift between Harry and William.
So, Richard, Rebecca says, actually, this is a positive thing that he didn't mention William.
Well, I mean, I agree, obviously, with Rebecca in the theory that one day, wouldn't it be wonderful if they were reunited? Absolutely, of course it would be, ideally. But in fact, everything that we've seen since they stepped down as senior working royals doesn't apparently, as I see it, since the royal family have been attacked time and time again, all those interviews about Spare, endless commentaries, and quite frankly, doing things sometimes that will take away the limelight from other royals. There have been all sorts of activities, and it's perfectly clear. Well, I mean, regarding a coronation one day, I mean, that's a long, long time, I'm presuming, in the future. Harry did come, after all, to his father's coronation, and putting it mildly, didn't stay. But how could the royals have communicated with him? I mean, he's got perhaps 2 more books, and could not anything you say appear in them? The problem is, what do they want to do? What is Meghan getting into politics? Does she want to be a philanthropist? What precisely? They've got because they're royal, and only because they're royal, they've got a huge international profile. Of what happened in that chase in New York at the interest. Look when Harry appears in court and look what happens there. It's vast, but only because they're members of the royal family. So they should respect it.
Indeed.
Not attack it.
Richard Fitzwilliams, Rebecca Toomey. Great clash. Thank you both so much. But what do you think? Is the breakdown in Harry and William's relationship likely to be permanent? From Diane. This is via Twitter. I can't see any way forward now for the brothers. King Charles may be forgiving, but as far as William is concerned, I think Harry has stepped way over the line. To be honest, Diane, I couldn't agree more. That is what I've heard for some time. William isn't going to forgive Harry. And one of the main reasons because of that is because of the way Harry has thrown Kate, his wife, under the bus. And I actually totally endorse William's loyalty to Kate on this. From Jeff, also via Twitter, Harry will come back to the UK when Meghan's finished with him. Cap in hand, want him back into the family. Of course, Charles will welcome him with open arms. Yeah, but I don't think William will. I'm from Duck. This is via the email, actually. Harry has a lot of growing up to do. His brother will wait. Your verdict is now in. 84% of you agree that Harry and William's rift likely be permanent. 16% of you reckon they'll be able to sort it out. Now, coming up, as he misses his own best man's wedding, Angela Levin reports that Prince Harry is becoming increasingly isolated, even drifting from his Hollywood lovey pals like James Corden. We're also going to bring you some really shocking breaking news regarding the TV presenter, a mainstay of GMTV, Fiona Phillips. Stay tuned for that. But next, after daring to challenge the kangaroo court of a privileges committee, loyal ally to Boris Johnson, Dame Andrea Jenkins, still refuses to be silenced. She joins me live in the studio next for her first exclusive reaction to coming under attack from the Westminster blob. Don't go anywhere. Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Stand by. We're going to bring you some really shocking breaking news regarding the TV presenter Fiona Phillips shortly. But first, Rishi Sunak was grilled by Parliament's Liaison Committee today with Labour loudmouth Chris Bryant, forcing him to admit he hadn't read the damaging Privileges Committee report that saw 7 of his MPs shockingly slammed for speaking out against the Boris Johnson witch hunt.
Do you think that they should apologise to the House?
I haven't actually gone through the report yet, so...
You haven't read the report?
No, I haven't been through the report yet in detail. I've seen it being reported, and I've been very clear in the past that...
But you asked Zach Goldsmith to apologise?
Yes, because he's a
So
minister.
you have read it sufficiently to note that Zach Goldsmith should apologise?
Yes, I've read the findings report. I haven't read the report from cover to cover, no. But
It's
I have read
about
the
3 pages long.
Despite the left's hysterical demands for apologies, the Johnson 7, or Magnificent 7, as sources close to Boris have recently rebranded them, are refusing, quite rightly, to allow their free speech to be curtailed in wild Westminster. Among them is former Education Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins, who was publicly slammed by the committee for publishing just one tweet back in March, which read, "The evidence submitted by Boris Johnson shows clearly that his case is compelling, clear and strong. I hope to see him fully exonerated and to put an end to this kangaroo court." Well, lock her up and throw away the key, right? In this ridiculous new world where free speech in Parliament is banned, thank goodness Dame Andrea Jenkins is not going to be bowed, and she joins me live in the studio tonight to give her exclusive first response to the accusations levelled against her. So, Andrea Jenkins, this is utterly terrifying. It is chilling. I thought we had a parliamentary democracy which absolutely prized free speech. Yet you are now facing the potential end of your career if you're censured and end up suspended from Parliament simply for criticising a kangaroo court witch hunt, which, by the way, was a kangaroo court witch hunt.
I agree, Dan, it's incredibly chilling. I mean, the committee was set up for a specific remit. It ruled on that, but I feel that it's overreaching, actually. And, you know, what kind of democracy and, as you said, freedom of speech do we live in if an MP cannot openly voice their opinions on a parliamentary committee? It's crazy. And it's a slippery slope. And, I mean, my concern is the freedom of speech. You know, everybody should be entitled to freedom of speech in this country. And what kind of country are we living in if we cannot voice an opinion?
But this is gross overreach by the Privileges Committee, because you didn't make these comments in Parliament. I mean, number one, you should have been protected if you did. But you tweeted this. Jacob Rees-Mogg said it on his GB News show. So what the Privileges Committee is saying, it can stop people from expressing their opinion in a public forum. I mean, I'm sorry, is this North Korea or China?
It's like the Spanish Inquisition, in my opinion, actually, Dan. I mean, it is just crazy. I haven't personally attacked anybody on the committee. It was that simple tweet that you said there.
Yeah, there we're looking at there. But Andrea, I'm sorry, there are there's lots and lots of evidence that backs up what you said in that tweet. Harriet Harman, the chairman of the committee, already declared Boris Johnson guilty before she heard any evidence. So I think you're completely entitled to say what you said.
I mean, on Monday, we've got the... this is going to be debated in Parliament, and let's see if the opposition, you know, push for a vote on this. But I'm going to use the parliamentary privilege to, you know, voice my strong opinions on this matter, Dan.
The thing is, Andrew,
I feel that it's been trying to silence us, actually. I mean, this is why. I mean, this is why I've been like a week coming out, because you've got to tread carefully.
Yeah.
And what kind of country are we living in?
That's terrifying.
It is very terrifying. It's chilling, like you said.
Because you are someone who prizes the fact that you speak out on the issues that you are passionate about. But I find that so terrifying that you actually had to think for a week.
Absolutely.
Because that's what they want.
And it's not who I am.
No.
Absolutely. It's that inner fight, really, because you know, the consequences, if they pushed it that far, with the opposition putting amendments in, it goes to the committee, if it gets to that stage, and then it could be amendable by the opposition, where, you know, would it end up in a by-election?
So you could face a recall election?
It could do at its worst. I'm hoping, you know, that colleagues won't push that, because it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
This is just a simple tweet voicing an opinion on a parliamentary committee. But I can't believe we're even having this conversation,
No, but
actually.
you know why we're having this conversation, because this is about trampling on the future career of Boris Johnson. The Magnificent Seven, you are all some of Boris's strongest allies.
We are.
Priti Patel, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Nadine Dorries, look, there you all are. And they're only coming after you because they want to finish Boris Johnson off for good. And what's so shocking to me, Andrea, is that, and I know this is difficult for you to talk about, but a lot of these dark forces are within your own
completely.
party.
I mean, we've seen the leader of the House praising the work of the committee, etc. And look how 118 of my colleagues voted on the free vote a couple of weeks ago on Boris Johnson. It's incredibly disappointing.
And then breaking tonight, this news that Bernard Jenkins, who was part of this kangaroo court witch hunt, is now being investigated by the police because he attended a lockdown-breaking party. Now, firstly, I think this is a ridiculous waste of police time, but he's only in this mess because he orchestrated the witch hunt against Boris.
And I believe everyone's innocent until proven guilty. But that's what we, you know, myself, we should be facing the same. And can I just say, Dan, about this committee, none of the seven of us knew that we was going to be named until we read it.
No.
And
you were also, by the way, given no opportunity to respond or give your own evidence. So I'm sorry, the Privileges Committee has actually subverted any usual court practice. They're not following any laws.
And back to Bernard, though. As I said, innocent and proven guilty, but we're hearing rumours, aren't we, of Theresa May and some other key names there.
They were all at it.
But to me, you know, if people's broke rules, then they should face the same consequences as anybody else.
Well, at the end of the day, Boris Johnson has faced the consequence of being forced to leave Parliament. So I'm sorry, if you're part of that witch hunt, a very intriguing tweet, by the way, and of course I do agree with you, innocent until proven guilty, from Guido Fawkes tonight, saying, did you attend a lockdown drinks party in Rosie Winterton's parliamentary office? Chris Bryant.
Wow.
The head of the Privileges Committee. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't. Not obviously only on Guido earlier, but I mean, I'm hugely disappointed in Chris Bryant's behaviour, actually, because he, you know, he's well renowned for his knowledge of parliamentary history, and he, of all people, should realise how important freedom of speech is.
But he wants to finish off Boris Johnson more than anyone. Look, final question. Rishi Sunak says he hasn't read the report. Doesn't he need to read the report and actually stop this witch hunt? He's the man that could do it.
I think he needs to read the report the Chief Whip does. By the way, I certainly didn't hear from my whip about this.
So you've been left hung out to dry?
It feels like that.
Really shocking stuff. Andrea Jenkins, do you know what? I know it's taken you a week, but I'm so glad you're speaking out against this, because we have to stand up for free speech. Jacob Rees-Mogg said the same thing earlier tonight. This is an absolute core principle of Westminster democracy.
And I've been there in the chamber on Monday speaking out.
Good. Well, I can't wait to hear it. Andrea Jenkins, thank you so much. Now, coming up 6 months to the day since Rishi Sunak made his 5 pledges to the British people, does the PM get a pass mark on any of his big priorities? My superstar panel have been marking Rishi's report card. They give their verdict shortly. But before that, as the Duke of Sussex swerves his own groomsman's wedding, is the runaway royal more isolated than ever before? Harry Sprague for Angela Levin has exclusive insight on that and much more. I'll also bring you up, some breaking and very sad news about the legendary TV broadcaster Fiona Phillips. Will reveal that news straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Reed, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Top royal biographer Angela Levin joins me in the studio now, and sullen Prince Harry has given the clearest indication yet that he's adopted Meghan's philosophy of ditching his nearest and dearest after skipping one of his best friend's wedding. Now, this is a shock because long-term pal Jack Mann was Harry's groomsman when he tied the knot to Meghan in 2018 and famously featured in the so-called Band of Brothers photograph at Windsor Castle during the evening celebrations. But just like his wife, the Duke appears to now have ghosted his close friend by swerving Mann's own big day in Sussex over the weekend. He was instead pictured, as we know, out and about with Meghan, smiling and laughing on the streets of California. Now, quizzed by the Daily Mail on Harry's absence from his son's wedding, Jack Mann's dad, Simon, subtly said, "I'm in no comment mode." It comes as our own Angela, the Duke's biographer, has heard that Harry is, quote, in a sad place, and he's now not even talking to his fellow British lovey pals like James Corden. So, Angela, this feels really sad that he didn't go to his groomsman's wedding. I mean, this is someone who he clearly stayed friends with, having met Meghan. What are you hearing about his state of mind?
Well, I just think that he's withdrawn from them all. I think he's got too much in his mind about, you know, the court case and I think Meghan, and he's very worried about that. And
I think that he just doesn't want to go out very much. I was told that she goes to any party that she's invited to, of course, especially the higher up they are, the more she goes. And he plays on these sort of turntables and stuff like that. He stays in. They're not often seen on these parties. And I think he just feels, you know, he's in no man's land and he just doesn't want to see people, and if he does see them, he's full of moans, and they don't necessarily want to see him. I mean, Obama, who had loved Harry and did this great stint with him when in Invictus Games they did something funny with the Queen and saying, we're winning, no, you're winning. I mean, they don't want to know them anymore. They don't want him to have bashed his family to pieces, and so they don't really want to spend time with him. I mean, it makes sense because you're tarnished by what he's been saying.
And what about James Corden? Because, of course, they were very close.
Yeah, I thought he had nothing to, had not been in touch with Harry for a long time. But apparently he's very busy in London now. And so it's
the move from California that's made it
it's a move away, and he's not going to go back there often, and he's trying to set up lots of things here. And so it's not really a cut-off. It's just that you're having a very different life. So that's somebody who he did laugh with, but is now no longer there.
And so Harry more isolated than ever?
I think he is very isolated because he doesn't want to complain about Meghan. Absolutely not. He wouldn't dream of it. And yet, you know, he goes to these hotels on his own and spends time there alone.
And do you think this is part of the reason why he's intending to travel to Africa on his own without Meghan for a new Netflix documentary?
Yes. I mean, he's obviously desperate to keep the details that they've, you know, said to them, that the money that they're giving, they've got £40 million left, and all he can think of is to go to Africa and talk about wildlife and the people there. Netflix haven't said they want it, but that's where he wanted to go. He told me when I was interviewing him for the biography that actually he longed to go to Africa and he could help stop the certain animals dying out, and that's where he felt most at home. He said, I call it my second family and my second home. So that's what he wants to do. But Meghan wouldn't be seen there. It's sort of in the rough. She did after 2 days they dated, but now she doesn't want to. And I think it's terrible. Will he be allowed back into America because he's said all these drug things?
Well, and of course the Heritage Foundation continue to investigate, don't they?
Yes.
Now look, Angela, just hang on 1 second, because breaking tonight, the top journalist and television presenter Fiona Phillips has announced she has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The Daily Mirror, where Fiona's been a long-time columnist, has revealed tonight that the 62-year-old was told she had the illness a year ago after suffering months of brain fog and anxiety. The former GMTV host told the Mirror's editor-in-chief Alison Phillips how the disease has affected her family. Watch.
Because this disease has had such an impact on my family, it's absolutely decimated. My mum, my dad, my Uncle Barry, I mean, it just goes on and on. It's just... And they always used to say to me, it's not hereditary. Well, there's something going on.
And do you think, though, that, you know, hopefully these drugs will be able to help other families?
Oh, good grief, yeah, because it's... I mean, I'm just getting on with it. I'm not taking any notice of it. I'm just getting on.
Now, she's talking there, Angela, about the fact that she is taking some revolutionary new drugs to try and help slow the onset. I have to say, I'm really heartbroken about this. I worked with Fiona for years when I was on the Lorraine show, and she would be the fill-in presenter when Lorraine was on holiday. She's a very good woman.
She's very courageous to do this, actually, because...
And you know her too, don't you?
Yes, I do. I interviewed her lots of times and went to her home for tea and things like that. And actually, she talked a lot to me about her mother and her father. Her mother got Alzheimer's when she was in her 50s, and it broke Fiona's heart. And then at the end of that, she discovered that her father had it too, and she did stop working and become a carer, which I think was incredibly impressive, and looked after him. And she did say, look, it's in the family. I'm bound to catch it. And your heart breaks because it's such a terminal thing and you don't know really what's happening to you, except you know something is.
And this is a young woman. She has had such a verve for life. She's obviously very passionate about the projects and everything that she works on. We should note as well, perhaps this puts a bit of a different angle on the recent controversy involving her husband, Martin Frizzell, who was the editor of This Morning. Of course, he was highly criticised after leaving their house and making this inappropriate joke about an aubergine to a reporter for Sly News. But perhaps, Angela, on hearing this news, do we perhaps think that actually Martin has been going through a lot in his personal life?
Yes, well, it's an enormous stress because I think this terrible thing of having a partner who you know very well and then seeing them become somebody quite different and you can't really help them, you can't change it, you can't make them better.
Because we saw it, of course, with Scott, with Barbara Windsor, and that was heartbreaking to witness. But the key thing for me...
Also for her children, she's a very caring mother.
She is.
And she loved both her boys.
Of course, and that's one of the reasons why she left GMTV, because the hours were such a strain.
Exactly, the hours were too much and she couldn't manage the two jobs. And so she was going to be at home and do other things. And I think that's very good in today's world when she's very successful, what she did. But she did put her family first, really.
And that's really precious time, which all of a sudden looks more important. I mean,
yes.
Really heartbreaking news. Fiona Phillips.
Terrible, actually. 62. I mean, it's
62, that she has Alzheimer's, but some hope because of a revolutionary new drug, which I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot about.
She's brave to try it.
Absolutely, she is, Angela Levin.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, coming up, in a TV-exclusive interview, the author and YouTuber Shalon Lester, who is threatening to launch a defamation lawsuit against the Sussexes, speaks out about being smeared by the couple's vicious Netflix documentary. But next, can you believe it's been 6 months since Rishi Sunak asked the British public to judge him on his 5 big pledges? So what's the verdict of my superstar panel? They return to mark the PM's report card, and I'll reveal the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. I can tell you the Daily Mirror will be covering that exclusive with Fiona Phillips, and we'll get Amanda Patel's reaction. They are close friends. We're back in just 2 minutes' time.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing. We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, it's 6 months to the day since Rishi Sunak made his 5 pledges to the British public, including cutting NHS waiting lists, halving inflation and stopping the boats. But as record numbers of migrants continue pouring in via the Channel, that's just one of his many failings. So, how should we mark the PM's report card at the midway point of the year? My superstar panel have sharpened their pencils and they're ready to reveal their grades next. Tonight, I'm joined by Amanda Patel, Ranal Jayawardena and Rebecca Reed. Also coming up, the author and YouTuber Shalon Lester speaks out exclusively on her sensational defamation case against Harry and Meghan after their sordid Netflix reality show claimed that she was involved in a coordinated cabal of online trolls. Plus, the esteemed royal biographer Tom Bower has fresh revelations on the Sussexes, including whether the money in Montecito could be about to run dry. He's live in the studio in Uncancelled. And after Woke ITV News interviewed a trans woman about the pressures of being a mother, the same left-wing agitator has stunned the internet by breastfeeding, claiming their chemically induced male milk is sufficient to nourish a newborn child. But do you agree? We'll address that in the media buzz. And after their sinister cancellation of Nigel Farage, can we still bank on the UK's uber-woke financial institutions? We'll debate in tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. We're going to have the first front pages in mere moments, including the Daily Mirror's revelation tonight that Fiona Phillips is battling Alzheimer's disease. That's straight after the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. The top story on GB News tonight. The chair of the Privileges Committee, Tory MP Sir Bernard Jenkin, could be facing a police investigation into a lockdown party at Conservative Party headquarters. Sir Bernard did respond this evening in a statement. He said, though, it was inappropriate to comment during a continuing investigation. Well, the Metropolitan Police are reopening their investigation into the so-called Jingle and Mingle lockdown party at Conservative Party headquarters on the 8th of December 2020, which Sir Bernard Jenkin is said to have attended. 2 COVID regulation breaches allegedly took place during the party. The Prime Minister's refused to say when he will fulfil his promise to stop small boat crossings over the English Channel, but he's denied the plan is on hold amid the legal obstacles stopping the government's plan to process migrants in Rwanda. Being questioned by senior MPs, Rishi Sunak denied there was no plan B if the Supreme Court didn't overturn the ruling which blocks the removal of migrants to Rwanda. He says ministers will challenge the appeal court judgment confidently and vigorously. Junior doctors have voted to extend their strike action until at least January 2024. Members of the Hospital Consultants and Specialists Association in England decided to extend their strike action by another 6 months, with 96.5% voting in favour. The decision comes as junior doctors prepare to walk out for 5 days from July the 13th to the 18th. The Prime Minister says the strikes are making the NHS waiting lists much worse.
Already had 500,000 people's care be impacted by industrial action, and I don't think that's right. I think everyone can see the economic context that we're in and the necessity for the government to make responsible decisions.
And teachers' unions are calling on the government to release recommendations on pay made by an independent body. NEU members in England are staging fresh strikes again tomorrow and then again on Friday over their ongoing pay dispute. All 4 education unions rejected the government's latest pay offer of £1,000 lump sum and a 4.5% pay rise. Finally, Their Majesties the King and Queen wished the NHS a happy 75th birthday today. Charles and Camilla visiting the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh. They're in Scotland at the moment. And they did that to celebrate the special occasion by meeting patients and staff, as well as unveiling a specially commissioned plaque. The Queen joked that the NHS shares a similar celebration as herself, as she also celebrates her birthday in July. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages are in, hot off the press. And the Metro carries a fab picture of a beaming Kate Middleton with Roger Federer at Wimbledon today, as well as a happy birthday story to mark the 75th anniversary of the NHS. The Daily Mirror with this very sad news that the legendary TV broadcaster Fiona Phillips has revealed her fight with Alzheimer's at the age of just 62. The ex-GMTV legend told the paper how she's trialling a new drug which may slow or reverse the condition. She said, "This disease has ravaged my family. Now it has come for me. I just hope they can find a cure." Now, my superstar panel back with me now, top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the former Conservative Cabinet Minister Ranil Jayawardena, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. And we're going to bring you a bit more on that very sad breaking news concerning Fiona Phillips. This is what she has said tonight about her battle with the disease and how she intends to deal with it.
You're still doing things, you're going on holiday.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything.
Exactly.
So I'm just doing what I normally do.
Fabulous.
So, yeah. Otherwise, what do I do? I don't want to not work. I don't want to be sitting around playing around with my fingers or,
Yeah, because you've always worked so hard, haven't you? You're such a worker.
Yeah.
She really has. Amanda Patel, you're close friends with the family. Really hard news, this.
Well, I've known for some time. And first of all, Dan, can I just say thank you for what you said before about Fiona's husband, Martin Frizzell, who obviously worked at This Morning. And when he made that really dumb aubergine joke, I sent him a message straight away saying, get a grip, mate. This is what he's been going through. And Fiona is amazing that she's putting on a brave face. I know that she's on this experimental drug. But, I can remember when she was driving, I think her parents were in Wales, and she was driving up and down every weekend to spend the weekend with them during all that time. And she always feared that it would, as she said, get her. But, tonight you just think, they're just a lovely family, and it's really, really hard. And thank God she's on this drug, and I think it's really brave of her to do what she's done, because the more that people understand about this disease, and the more that we can try and find cures from it, 'cause it's a Cinderella disease. Breast cancer gets millions and millions, Alzheimer's gets hardly anything. But just to see someone so young and so beautiful and with so much ahead of her boys who are now young men growing up, enjoying their place in Tuscany, having all that fun that they planned for them. Yeah.
And Ranil, we see with Alzheimer's, don't we, the cruelty of it is that you know what's coming, and Fiona knows what's coming more than most because she's gone through it with her family.
Yes, it's desperately sad, and clearly there's so much research that's happened, but there's so much further to go. And the fact that she is trying these new drugs, that's not only something for her, but she's giving something to everyone else as well, which is fantastic.
Which is just typical Fiona. Yeah. Always campaigning, always trying to make the world a better place. And she's an unreconstructed lefty.
Well, no, she is, because, of course...
But we were still friends.
Famously, Gordon Brown wanted Fiona Phillips in his cabinet. That's how respected she was in Labour circles. So I could imagine her becoming almost one of those game-changing forces, perhaps, in this country behind what we understand about Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that, and I think there's something incredibly noble when something that dreadful happens to you about trying to make the best of it, even though there isn't really a best. But it does kind of put into context when everything blew up a few weeks ago. I mean, honestly, so tiny and so stupid and petty, comparative to when you're dealing with an actual real-life human drama.
And that story about Gordon Brown, that broke at my birthday party.
Did it?
Yeah, where she was there with Martin, and she told, I'm not going to say who it was. She told someone who, I'm not going to say, she told someone and the story broke anyway.
I think I know who you mean.
But she wanted to put, even this is before, because this is some birthdays ago, she wanted to put her family first.
Yeah.
That's what she's always done.
She did, and she didn't want to go into politics then, and that's also the same reason why she left GMTV, because it was such a brutal show with brutal hours. And look, I've always loved Fiona Phillips, worked with her for many years, and so sending her lots of love, because that must have been a very hard decision. Now, Rishi Sunak marked the 6-month anniversary of his 5 famous pledges today, looking as grumpy and defeated as ever in front of Parliament's liaison committee. With his promises to cut NHS waiting lists, halve inflation, grow the economy and reduce the national debt, all looking shaky, the unelected PM's chances of achieving his 5th and final pledge to stop the boats took a serious hit last week as the Court of Appeal farcically ruled his Rwanda migrant plan was unlawful. And when grilled this afternoon on his confidence of reversing the decision, Sunak made clear there's no plan B.
So do you have a plan for what you'll do if the appeal fails?
As I said, our belief remains that the plan that we have is legal, it's compliant with all our obligations, and we'll be appealing it vigorously.
Small boat arrivals hit an all-time high last month, with nearly 4,000 illegal migrants entering the country in June alone. And with just 6 months left to deliver on his promise, Rishi running out of time. So tonight, we're giving Rishi our half-term report, grading the PM on his progress so far. So Amanda Patel, let's go straight to your report card. Oh, goodness me, girl. I don't want you as my teacher. What? He's passed on nothing.
I wanted to put FO on the last one. But they
what does that stand for? Don't.
That says failing over and over and over again.
But come on, Amanda, he hasn't failed on everything.
OK, I do my research for this show, OK,
I know
as
you do.
So I spoke to a very esteemed economist, one on the right and a supporter of Rishi's, and he said inflation, it's not in his control, it's in the control of the Bank of England. And as we know, they're too concerned about deciding, you know, whether a frog can have a human baby. Then we have the, on the growing the economy, this economist said we'll be lucky if we miss a recession. Number 3, I'm going to go through really quick, right, for me. National debt, it's at a 62-year high, and the interest we're going to pay on the increased interest rates is $20 billion in the next year. Not a good look. NHS waiting list, 7.4 million. With the strikes, no chance. And as you just said in the intro, that small boats, in June we had nearly 4,000, which is the biggest in June we have ever had. And they never had the guts to get out of, when they voted for Brexit, we were promised take control of our borders, get out of all EU rules, and they are still slave to them, and nothing's going to happen.
Come on, Randall, stand up for your man, please. You haven't failed him, have you? Let's look at your report card. Oh, a B. A B. Well, you know, and you're one of this guy's MPs. He's done for.
Well, look. So first of all, you know, I wish him well in trying to achieve these things, because I think a lot of people want these things.
I think we all want these things.
You know, people want the boats to be stopped, but there's much further to go, and this is a progress report, right? So you know, there is progress being made, but we need to take on the courts, because the courts are the people stopping us.
So you have hope.
The Rwanda plan.
You have hope.
I've got to have hope, haven't I? As a Conservative MP, but the you know, so you know, the boats, stop the boats, really, really important. The NHS waiting list, that's again hugely important. He's committed to, you know, Boris's 40 new hospitals. That's great.
Yeah.
We promised
more work
that
to
in the
do.
manifesto.
OK, more
so
work to do. Says former Tory Cabinet Minister Rebecca Reid. Astonishingly, you've actually been kinder than our Tory Amanda.
I know.
So he hasn't failed. Good. Give him a chance.
Well, I think D is a fail, isn't it? I mean, look.
What is wrong with you? DCFFD.
Yeah, also,
have you been
arguably, does that add up to a D?
Funny juice or something?
Well, look, I think that we didn't go into a recession and everyone said we were going to, so you've got to give them something for that. We still, yeah, but that's always true. You always could. Slightly better. I don't really... the boat was very, very slightly fewer, like a little bit fewer. You've got to give them something for that. I think I'm just a very generous grader.
The biggest rate ever in June.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And the summer's coming, nice, calm seas.
Poor
Well, that's
Rishi.
good in
Come on
terms of
over.
people
Poor Rishi,
surviving.
maybe there's reason why he looked defeated. Speaking of defeated politicians, Mhairi Black entered Parliament. Remember her back in 2015? She was the youngest MP in 350 years, but under a decade later, the Scottish National Party's deputy leader in Westminster is throwing in the towel, aged just 28. Watch.
You're not going to stand
Not
for the
gonna
SNP?
stand. No, I'm stepping down at the next election.
Why?
Honestly, because I'm tired. Is a big part of it, and the thing that makes me tired is Westminster. I think it is one of the most unhealthy workplaces that you could ever be in. It's a toxic environment.
And entirely predictably, the queen of Scottish separatism, Nicola Sturgeon, scheming Sturgeon, popped up to show her solidarity within minutes.
Both gutted by and entirely understanding of this. Her reasons resonate, but what a loss of a unique talent, not just to the SNP, but to politics generally. I only hope it's temporary. The world needs more Mhairi Blacks in politics, not fewer. I hope we will see her in the Scottish Parliament in the future.
You can blame political toxicity all you want, ladies, but I think we all know the real reason you both cut and run because your divisive and diminishing party is finished at the next election, and it deserves to be. Rebecca Reid, Ranul Jayawardena, and Amanda Patel do stand by because coming up, a trans woman followed a controversial ITV News appearance by sharing a picture of himself breastfeeding a newborn child, but with the milk-like substance only produced by a cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs that could harm the baby. Is it right children should be fed by biological men in this way? My superstar panel will give their verdict soon. But next, litigious Harry and Meghan could soon be getting a taste of their own medicine from top US YouTuber and author Shalon Lester. She claims they dropped a huge legal clanger in their Netflix ball fest and she's now lawyering up. Can you guess what their mistake was? Shalon reveals all live and exclusively next. Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
You love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Tom Bower's on the way. But first, after Paul Burrell sensationally revealed on my show last week that he could pursue legal action against Prince Harry, the Sussexes have been threatened with their second defamation lawsuit. Now, this one concerns the couple's Netflix reality show where they claimed a majority of the hateful comments directed at them online were posted by very few accounts. Watch.
They were coordinating and talking about what they would discuss for that particular day or week, what pictures they should disseminate. They were actively recruiting people, telling people how to create multiple accounts, how to use VPNs, virtual private networks, to hide the IP so they don't get suspended. It's insane.
The documentary then showed a series of, quote, middle-aged housewives said to be part of a coordinated cabal, including this woman, the American journalist turned YouTuber Shallon Lester. But in a video posted this week, Shallon branded the use of her image defamation, slander, mischaracterization and misinformation. And I'm delighted that Shallon Lester joins me live now from the US to speak exclusively about the legal action she's taking against the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. So, Shallon, great to have you on the show. I know you've thought long and hard about this, haven't you? Because you were initially so shocked when you saw that Netflix documentary making these defamatory claims against you. Why have you decided to pursue legal action now?
Well, there is just the small details. I take umbrage with the fact that I was described as middle-aged and a housewife. I am neither. I don't think any of those other women could fall into that category. But, if you're going to do a documentary, I grew up in the time when documentaries were factual. They were fact-checked. I'm a journalist. There's a journalistic process, and there's something called integrity and honesty and truth. And this documentary presented a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory as fact with not one screenshot, not one DM, not one YouTube clip, nothing to support it for anybody. Me, the other creators, any other creators. And again, if you're going to go in a documentary and present something as fact, you better be able to back it up. But I think we are just, as a global citizenry, tired of watching Meghan and Harry present their imagined victim narrative as fact. And eventually, if you keep doing this, you're going to step in it. You're going to make claims that are not only false, they're defamatory. And the buck is going to have to stop with someone. And that someone today is me.
Good on you. Because the thing is, Shallon, you're a really successful YouTuber. And I look at your page and you don't just talk about Harry and Meghan. You comment on loads of public figures and loads of issues in the news and health, and you cover the whole gauntlet of topics. But at the end of the day, they can't handle the fact that you do criticise them. So what they want to do is paint you as a troll.
Yeah, right. And if they were just saying that, if they're saying, listen, this YouTuber, that YouTuber, they're just mean. They're being mean. I am mean. I'm critical. I'm self-aware. And I demand that from the people that we talk about. I talk about Kim Kardashian and Jennifer Lopez and all sorts of people to break down what we can learn from their behavior from a psychology point of view, the advice we can give. I could talk about a tortoise and a hare, or I could talk about a Kim and a Kanye and a Meghan and a Harry. And if they were just like, we just don't like being talked about, that's fine. I understand that. But when you cross into accusing me of things and present it as fact, it becomes defamation. So that's where I have a little bit of an issue.
I understand that, actually, because they've tried to do the same thing with journalists like me, Shalon, over here, and suggested that simply because we are reporting facts about the couple that we're encouraging trolls to attack them. And it's like, no. I'm just reporting the truth about what you've done. And what I think is great about what you're doing, Shalon, is you're actually having the balls to say, you know what, Harry and Meghan, you want to sue everyone. Well, hang on a moment, I'm coming for you too, because you've done exactly the same thing that you accuse all of us of doing all the time.
Exactly. And of course they don't like you. Liars don't like the truth. And if you let liars talk enough, you give them enough rope that they're going to hang themselves. And they're going to veer into such crazy, conflated, wild narratives that it's going to veer into something illegal, something defamatory, something that at the very least really pisses people off. And I think that that's what they really can't conceptualize is there is no global conspiracy against them. There's no cabal. They're just unlikable. They're garden variety jerks. It's really not that special. And they have to think that they're special because that's kind of the only talent they have is this victim narrative. If they had one vendetta against one person, one outlet, you can settle that and you can move on. But when your vendettas are constantly imagined.
The undertone and what that ridiculous and revolting Netflix series did, though, is try to paint anyone who criticises them as some sort of racist. And that's the undertone, isn't it? And actually...
Oh, yes.
It has nothing to do with the fact that Meghan's a mixed-race actress, does it?
No, of course not. And if you want equality, equality is judging someone by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. Martin Luther King Jr. said that. And actually, Meghan, we're judging you by the content of your content. We're judging you by your bad podcasts. We're judging you by your bad Netflix specials, by your bad interviews, by your bad press tour. People just don't like her. I mean, some people do. Great. That's their right. But it's also our right to be like, I don't like this woman. I don't like this man. They don't seem trustworthy. They don't seem honest. And that doesn't make us racist.
What was it about Meghan? Because look, lots of Americans actually liked these guys for a long time. Yeah. Even me, I really gave them a chance to begin with. And I thought, look, I'm happy having this woman in the royal family. Let's hope she makes a difference. Let's hope she's part of the modernisation. Now, you're very proud of the fact, Shalon, that you picked up on your dislike of Meghan right from the start. So what did you see at the beginning that folk like me missed?
I talk a lot on my channel about the art of seduction and the seductive process, and it's a very formulaic thing to do. And Meghan nailed it. I mean, she was a textbook seducer, and it was fascinating to watch how she got her hooks into Harry. I mean, there was the rumor that she was wearing Princess Diana's perfume on dates and separating him from his family and honing in on the shadow self. And I could see her as a manipulative woman who uses a lot of strategy to move through life. And honestly, amazing. I love this. I love this look. You know, why shouldn't she be? Go after what you want, be strategic, get it. But the shift into victim was so strange. It was so incredibly strange. And it was so, I think we see this in people in our own lives. Like, they have all the advantages and they choose these victim narratives. They choose to see the world as fundamentally wronging them. This could be your mom, your coworker, your boyfriend. We're all just so sick of it. And when it's crystallized into someone who is literally a duchess, was every advantage, it's like,
I know.
Who in the hell are you trying to fool?
These two are the opposite of victim. They are the most privileged human beings on planet Earth. And I love the fact that you were not seduced, Shalon, in the way that I was. I big you up for that. Although I would say I was onto it pretty quickly, but no, you certainly spotted it from the start. Shalon Lester.
She's good. She's good.
Yeah, she is. But look, keep us posted. Shalon Lester taking legal action against Harry and Meghan for defamation. Thank you for joining us on the 4th of July.
Thank you.
God bless your independence. Thank you, Shalon. But look, coming up in Uncancelled, what's next for One Trick Ponies, Harry and Meghan, after the world got bored of their family-bashing psychodrama? Esteemed royal author Tom Bauer, Meghan's biographer, gives devastating insight into why the Los Montecito owners could soon be veering towards bankruptcy. But next, a trans woman breastfeeds his newborn child with a milk-like substance created only by taking a potentially harmful cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs. So do you agree with biological men feeding babies in this way, or should he simply have bought baby formula? This is a hot debate. My superstar panel divided on it. They'll get stuck in after the break.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight. Now, in our media buzz, more front pages have just been delivered. And the Daily Mail leads on those 2 new COVID party probes, including an event attended by Partygate witch hunter-in-chief Sir Bernard Jenkin. Scotland Yard launched a formal investigation as Tory peer Lord Cruddas, a close ally of Boris Johnson, last night called on Jenkin to resign from the Privileges Committee. Also, I'm fascinated about the story about Captain Tom's daughter being told to tear down a spa pool complex. Potentially, she used Captain Tom's charity in order to get planning permission. That is unravelling and fast. The Daily Telegraph reports that the US is pushing for EU wokester Ursula von der Leyen to be installed as the next NATO head. And The Sun's playful headline reads, Boris hid horse in bedroom. No, not a Johnson party game. It's how Boris Becker tricked the taxman. The paper reports The bankrupt ex-tennis ace kept the animals in his bedroom to hide them from debt collectors. My superstar panel back now, top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Plattel in the House, alongside the former Conservative Cabinet Minister Ranil Jayawardena and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, woke ITV News sparked outrage last week after a trans woman featured on its 10 o'clock bulletin describing the struggles of being a mother amid soaring water bills. Watch.
This customer fears that either bill payers or taxpayers will end up picking up the tab.
The idea that we're going to have even greater water bills, soaring bills, at a time of prices already being hiked, we have to pay a lot for food. That's tough if you're a mum like me, already struggling to get the things that my kid needs.
Mika Minio Palulio has since been exposed as a hard-left agitator who was once a senior advisor to Corbyn's Labour Party. But more pressingly, Mika, a biological man, sparked controversy online in wake of the ITV appearance by sharing a selfie on a train, so-called breastfeeding their child. Some medical professionals say men can make themselves lactate by taking a cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs, including women's contraceptive pills and antipsychotics, to trick the body into producing a fluid substance. They use breast pumps to mimic changes a biological woman's body undergoes during the late stages of pregnancy and childbirth. But experts warn the protocol has long-term health implications for the baby and parent, including passing on drugs to the newborn child, which can cause heart problems. And they argue the synthetic fluid cannot possibly match up to nutritious and wholesome breast milk produced naturally by biological women. Critics have asked why Mika could not simply have been, used formula milk, right? So, Amanda, is it right for trans women to be risking their baby's health in order to say that they are able to breastfeed?
Unusually for me, Dan, I do not feel qualified to talk about this. So I will tell you what a very eminent surgeon friend of mine told me quite recently. He said that the way that the trans lobby has convinced the medical profession to, what he said, mutilate young people's bodies and to give them the drugs, neither the surgery nor the drugs they're given are tested over a long period of time. And he said, we'll look back in 20 years' time, and he said, it will be like thalidomide. We will look back and say, how could this monstrous thing happen? Not that there's anything monstrous about being trans, but the ease with which some surgeons have been prepared to make women and men infertile, change their their parts, change their bodies, and give them drugs that have not even been tested properly. And, I feel really sorry for that little baby.
But Rebecca, you disagree.
I do disagree. So this is a medication which, so it's not just trans people who breastfeed when they haven't had a baby. So adoptive parents sometimes do it, people who have babies via surrogates, and people, same-sex partners who want to both be able to breastfeed, in women, obviously, generally speaking. So it's not that unusual, that is fairly unusual. I do feel a little bit...
It's not unusual for a biological man
Well, it's not
breastfeed.
that unusual for people who haven't been pregnant to induce lactation so that they can breastfeed. I mean, it is in the grand scheme of it in the world.
But it's not
But it's
unknown.
not just trans men who do it. So the first...
But even Mika acknowledged that they've had to stop because
that's because they were having chemo.
They risked passing
That's because they were having
chemicals.
That's because they were having chemotherapy. You can't breastfeed. I stopped breastfeeding because I had various major surgeries and I didn't want to pass morphine on through my breast milk. I also wasn't very good at breastfeeding. But my issue,
an honest woman.
My issue with it, generally
She's not keen on breastfeeding.
I wasn't good at it. But my major issue here actually is about privacy for young children. I don't think that baby should be having their life story put on the internet. That is my big issue. I think that there are lots of things that happen with breastfeeding. For instance, I've got friends who breastfeed each other's babies. It's a private experience, and there are lots of and I've got lots of friends who drink wine when they're breastfeeding. All of this stuff is between you and your baby and your family. My issue is that it's being made public, and that child has the right to privacy. That's where I have an issue with this.
But Ranil, you're aghast at this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it is all about the child, but from a very different perspective. So, this child is being put at risk medically, as you've said, but also, I mean, I heard someone say this week, are adults doing hard things for children, or are children doing hard things for adults? And it does seem that this baby is being used in a way so that this person can live their life as they wish, but the child has no say on that at all. They have no say on whether they're receiving these drugs through this substance, and they have no ability to protect themselves against any conditions that might result from this. And I mean, I do think it is troubling that adults' rights are increasingly being put ahead of children's rights, not just in this instance, but in many others.
Rebecca?
Out of interest, and I'm not leading the witness here at all, would you feel the same if it were an adoptive parent who wanted to be able to breastfeed to bond with their baby, inducing lactation with the same medication?
So I think
they carry the same medical risks, absolutely.
Well, it's the same medication.
Well, then yes.
OK, no, I'm with you. I think they are the same thing. I don't think it's a trans issue. I think it's about feeling entitled to have a certain experience of motherhood that nobody's entitled to. Lots of cis women can't breastfeed.
But
it's about these drugs not being
Rebecca,
properly tested.
I'm going to correct you. We don't do the cis woman thing here. Just women.
And can I just say...
I do the cis woman thing here, and that's one of the reasons I am here.
What's a cis woman?
For Ofcom.
Can I just
Sorry.
say, adoption is, can I just say, adoption is such a noble thing for people to do. And I think it's really important that we don't... I don't dismiss what you were saying and challenging the point, but, you know, people adopting is a great thing to do to help people. Yes. But then you look at, in terms of putting the adult first, you look at then what happens in some cases in surrogacy. And actually, that's, again, the adult putting themselves first.
Well, surrogacy is, again, about wanting to have a specific experience of parenthood, whether you are entitled to it biologically or not. It's a very complicated thing. All I will say is I do believe everybody here loves their children.
But the point is, there is a health risk to do
Well, no, there are very... That's been debated. Some of the doctors quoted have said there is.
How long have these drugs been tested for before they were used on these
babies in a regular
Rebecca,
well, 2018,
yeah, exactly, because you're taking medication to stop a regular heartbeat, which can pass on
It said in a
heartbeat.
small number of cases. It's also not great to be taking the contraceptive pill and breastfeeding. People do it every day. It is part of life. It's not great to drink and breastfeed. People do it every day.
Now, look, Rishi Sunak and Superwoman Suala are to hold an emergency summit with police and major sporting bodies on how to deal with eco-terrorists from the likes of Just Stop Oil. The meeting follows England cricketer Johnny Bairstow's heroics last week when he personally manhandled a pitch invader off the field of play. And writing for The Sun today, the PM urged authorities to ditch the soft touch approach and be more like Bairstow. Of course, the great British public have been leading the way for some time on how to get rid of eco-terrorists. Watch.
There. Wrong ends, the lot of you. Have that, and you can have it as well, you
Let me go past.
Meanwhile, our law enforcement have been doing this.
What are you not going to do, mate? It's not on the boy. You're not going to do, boy.
Yeah, I say follow Bairstow's lead. Lock up the eco-terrorists. Just do it. Rebecca Reid, Ranald Joe Wadana, Amanda Patel, do stand by because coming up, one of our lefty superstar panellists who appears regularly on this show has been nominated by tonight's gang for a Greatest Britain or Union Jackass Award. So, who's been a winner or sinner and why? I'll reveal all when we nominate shortly. But next, in Uncancelled, Tom Bauer delivers his forensic royal analysis on Harry and Meghan's busted flush. With commercial deals faltering and no idea how to rebrand themselves, could the Duke soon scuttle back to London with his begging bowl out amid concerns about bankruptcy? We'll have new updates to King Charles's cash for honours scandal and Kate Middleton's fierce fight back against Meghan Markle too. We're back in just 2 minutes' time.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing. We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And Harry and Meghan's year to forget keeps getting worse, with the money-minded Montecito runaways now thought to be struggling with how to rebrand themselves after a series of damaging blows. From hemorrhaging staff to having their £20 million Spotify deal axed after being called effing grifters by a top boss, the Sussexes are now widely thought of as one-trick family-bashing ponies who have run their course, and with a massive mortgage on their £40 million Californian mansion to pay, big questions remain over whether the Perma victim pair are going to be veering towards bankruptcy. So, Tom Bauer, you're saying there's a lot of confusion at the moment in Montecito about exactly what they do next.
Well, I'm told it's been a week from hell for the Sussexes in Montecito, and that what they really can't decide is what they're going to do. On the other hand, in Clarence House and in London, there's a feeling that they're finally getting a taste of their own medicine, which is poison. And so the mood really is at the moment, wait and see. But on the other hand, I do think the Sussexes are suddenly finding great problems about establishing or re-establishing the magic and the mystique which they thought they had 2 years ago and has now really evaporated. And they're really looking for a cause. They're looking for something to do. And this division, where suddenly Harry announces he might go off to Africa and make a film about saving Africa, which is just a nonsense, and Meghan, who can't clearly relaunch the TIG because she couldn't even do her own podcasts, she has not forgotten how to work. So I think this week, from what I'm told, they've just been hitting their heads against the wall, trying to discover what should we do, how do we actually relaunch ourselves, rather than disappear down the hole.
Because isn't there a bit of a risk, if Meghan were to relaunch the TIG, that she could become the new Dylan Mulvaney, you know, that trans influencer who got a gig from Bud Light and ended up wiping off about 20% of their stock value? A lot of brands will actually be very nervous about associating with someone who provokes such a reaction amongst at least 50% of Americans.
Well, I think that was the reason the Dior supposed contract evaporated. She has made herself, to some extent, contaminated. And how does a contaminated person actually sell? You see, what was brilliant about the Kardashians was, and is, they keep on reinventing themselves. They always create some huge new marriage or sensation or film or whatever. The Sussexes are only one trick, which is to attack. Yeah. And that has now turned sour.
Also, they're the total opposite to the Kardashians, because the one thing about the Kardashians, whatever you think about them, I actually happen to quite like them, but they love their family, you know, and in America that's really important. Blood is thicker than water. They always stand by each other, even when they're disagreeing. Total opposite of Harry and Meghan, who threw the Windsors under the bus at the first possible opportunity. But look, Tom, as if things couldn't get any more stressful for King Charles, police now considering criminal charges over the Prince's Foundation Cash for Honours scandal. So this is not good timing, isn't it?
Well, it's very bad for King Charles, and I've always feared this was going to happen. This is to do with the extraordinary story of a Saudi businessman called Mahfouz, who gave £1 million in cash to the king.
Wasn't it Fortnum and Mason bags?
Yeah, not once but twice, or it was euros. And in return was told by his head flunky Fawcett that he would be elevated to not only a knighthood, but also get British citizenship, which of course is a criminal offence. Now, it has really simmered, but the police cannot bury it. And what we understand is that they're going to have to make a decision whether they're going to prosecute Fawcett or not. My suspicion is they're going to have to. And that, of course, is hugely embarrassing for King Charles and really, in the end, will cause him great grief.
Yeah, because this was his nearest and dearest when it
was indeed.
Advisors.
And he took the money.
Yeah, I want to talk as well about this update to Valentine Lowe's fascinating book, Courtiers. He's revealed that it was actually Kate behind the scenes who really lobbied to get that famous line, "Recollections may vary," in the statement eventually released by the late Queen Elizabeth after Harry and Meghan's Oprah interview. So is she actually far more of a force than we have given her credit for, Tom?
Oh, I think we've always credited her with force in this programme. You and I have always thought she was the steel behind any of the marshmallows in front, including the king. But, of course, it wasn't her phrase. That was invented by somebody else. But when she saw it, she realised. And, of course, this week of all weeks, the pictures of her with Federer today, smiling, looking unbelievably glamorous, sporty and really magnetic, knowing at the same time, hiding in their castle in Montecito and the Sussexes, fretting about what they should do, is just such wonderful boost for the Prince and Princess of Wales.
It's fascinating, isn't it? No big celebrities around the world want to be pictured with Harry and Meghan. They all want to be pictured with William and Kate. This is not what Harry and Meghan expected.
No, of course not. And thank goodness. This is what I said right at the beginning of the segment. This is now tasting their own medicine. The poison has come to infect them.
So now, toxic now.
Well, yeah. I mean, they got their big boost with Oprah Winfrey. They lied in that interview. Finally, it's beginning to swing the other way. And the Waleses are beginning to show that they can survive without the Sussexes and, to some extent, rebuffed all the poison they sent over.
Tom Bauer, absolutely fascinating stuff. The author of Revenge. Thank you so much, Tom. See you in a couple of weeks. But it's time now to reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel return, Amanda Platel, your nominee for tonight's Greatest Britain.
Well, I've thrown out my other thought, and it's got to be Fiona Phillips. I just thought it was incredibly courageous of her to come out and to talk about her Alzheimer's. And my prayers go out to her and her husband, Martin, and her 2 boys. She's a great woman, and I know she's got, well, I pray she's got loads and loads and loads of years of great life with her family. She deserves it.
Yeah, so of course she has given this bombshell interview tonight to the Daily Mirror revealing her Alzheimer's diagnosis, but also saying that she will be taking revolutionary drug treatment, which she hopes slows down its onset. Here's what Fiona had to say.
Because this disease has had such an impact on my family, it's absolutely decimated. My mum, my dad, my Uncle Barry, I mean, it just goes on and on. It's just, I'm just doing what I normally do. Fabulous. So, yeah.
Very brave. Ranal, who's your Greatest Britain nominee?
Well, I certainly don't expect to win, but Sajid Javid, who this week, in fact, set out the future of the NHS, in my view. I've been saying this for some time. We need to have a royal commission to review the NHS and to work cross-party to figure out what it should look like in the future, how we should incentivise people to take more responsibility for themselves.
And Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
So I know she would defer to Amanda and indeed Fiona, but mine is Amy Nicole, fellow token lefty, who got married on Saturday and was here, I think, for 36 hours or something later, showing Jacob Rees-Mogg his boss. And I wish them all well and great happiness in their new marriage.
She was. Absolutely. Big congratulations to Amy and John. Lovely, lovely couple, and she looked beautiful. And usually, of course, she would win the Greatest Britain, but really, after that incredible breaking news tonight, Fiona Phillips, after bravely revealing she's battling Alzheimer's at just 62 years old and doing so in a way that I think will make her a key campaigner in terms of raising awareness for this horrid, horrid disease in the years to come. Amanda Patel, your Union Jackass nominee, please.
Well, Dan, it has got to be all these woke banks who are going around cancelling people like Nigel Farage for their political views or otherwise, and they will soon discover that it will be their customers like us that will cancel them.
Ranul, your Union Jackass nominee.
Well, with apologies to Amanda, it's the Australian cricket team. I'm still reeling in what happened over the weekend. Shocking. It's just not cricket.
OK, I get a right of reply here. Really briefly, as I'm an Australian...
Are you on the team, Amanda?
Shame on the Aussies. Ooh. It was not cricket. It was
Exactly
disgusting.
right.
And I'm
Exactly.
glad I took the Tebbit test 20 years ago and support England.
Yeah, and you love Ben, because you love Ben Stokes, don't you? You're a big Ben Stokes.
We all love Ben Stokes. 155, Battle of Thermopylae. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
Mine is Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, who apparently had a mural painted over at an asylum centre for children of sort of cartoons and pictures because apparently it was too welcoming. That is a truly
You
scummy...
made that up.
No, it's in the news. It's almost unbelievable, but apparently true.
Well, look, it's going to be the double win for Amanda Patel today because, as you know, after I spoke about it in my digest at the top of the show, I think these banks, who are not at all woke, but are just pretending to be, to get on that ridiculous Stonewall list, are actually doing huge damage by shutting the accounts of those from the small C Conservative brigade. So thank you to Amanda Patel, Ranul Jayawardena, Rebecca Reid, my superstar panel. Thank you for your company. I'm not here tomorrow night. It's going to feel so weird. I'm back Monday week. Mark Dolan keeping the seat warm. I'm going to miss you guys lots, though. Thank you for your company the last few months. Headliners is next. Good night.